joy to be here today to celebrate 6 months of recovery, 6 months of healing. And I'm excited about the program that has been outlined for you by the Long-Term Recovery Committee and by the City of Rowlett, working hand in hand and side by side. I ask you now if you will please stand for the presentation of the colors.
Present on.
Now will you please join me in the Pledge to Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We need some Batman music here. Da-da-da. Y'all do it, do it. Da-da-da-da. Bat Mayor.
Well, that's a little embarrassing. First off, thank you so much for the invitation to be here. I personally would not have missed this for the world, even if I was to stay, had an opportunity just to be seated where you are. But they asked me and said, would you be willing to say a few words? And really wanted to have an opportunity just to kind of talk a little bit about that evening, because it's hard to believe that 6 months has passed since the December 26th tornado. And for many of us, it seems like just yesterday. But today is an opportunity just to stop and reflect, to remember those impacted, and give thanks to all the staff, the volunteers, the organizations that stepped up to assist Rowlett and its citizens during one of the worst times in our history. I'd like to take a moment before I talk a little bit more about the incident itself to introduce some of our elected officials here this evening. And first, I'd like to introduce our state representative, Cindy Burkett, is here with us. In just a few minutes. And then from our city council, our Rowlett City Council, we have Bruce Hargrave, city council member. Robert Van Blumendahl in the back, Robert. Martha Brown. And I don't believe we have any others from city council here. Do we have Debbie Bobbitt or Rick Sheffield? Are they here? I do not see them. And finally, a special thanks to my friend and former and the Mayor Pro Tem on City Council. We have Michael Gallants here this evening as well. And there are numerous staff members, but we'd like to take an opportunity to say a special thanks to Brian Funderburk, our city manager, for all of his leadership during this. You know, I've often been told that when the chips are down and they're at the absolute worst, the true character of a person comes out, the true character of individuals come out. And that evening of December 26th was a test. We were tested. God tested us that evening. And I'm proud to report that Rowlett and its citizens are not only strong, but we as a city are something that many can be proud of. Absolutely. And you know, before I talk more about character, I wanted to take a few minutes and talk a little bit about that evening itself. If you think about that evening for just a moment, we think about December 26th, 7 o'clock. We all remember, I think, what we were doing that evening, very vividly in some cases. I, for one, was yelling at my daughter, telling her to get downstairs right now, and she says, I'm getting a shower. And I said, no, you're not. You're going to, no, I have to wash my hair. I said, no, you don't understand. You can get downstairs. And it went from, please get downstairs, to get your butt downstairs right now because we have a tornado coming. And You know, and that's kind of just a, a little bit of a humorous story, but it's the point of where we were all at. Many of us were gathered around. It was the day after Christmas. We had families and friends who were still celebrating in many cases, some exchanging gifts. Some were actually out shopping, and while others were out dining. And some were just at home, just enjoying the evening, the day after Christmas. And I remember stepping outside personally. I remember being out there and feeling the warmth outside. And I said, something's not right. It was just stale in the air, and it was just thick as could be. And here we are, December 26th. I'm like, this must be cold out here. Not that kind of temperature. I remember watching the weather and them saying, well, we were predicting some bad storms. We had placed some folks in our EOC. And I remember as it got closer and closer, I knew we were going to be in trouble when the news report came on and said the tornado is going through Mesquite, and it's basically heading north to south. South to north. And normally you see them run from west to east on a regular basis, but this trend was different. And you can see the line, the cone that they would put in there, and that cone literally almost went right through my neighborhood where I live down my street. And I knew at that point we were really in trouble as a community. This is something we think about planning and all the stages and all the hard work by our CERT team and our emergency response crews. We always talked about the day of preparation for. And we kept thinking about it, but thought this would never happen to the city because God always protected us. He always put his loving arms around the city. We always had this bubble around Rowlett. If you think about the bubble, if you've heard that story before, the storm would either go, it would sort of run toward Rowlett, and then it would just dissipate or split to the north or south. Well, that evening we were not that lucky, and so we were impacted by that. And moments after the storm hit, our character was truly tested at that time. Or not only tested, but it was truly revealed who we were as a city, who we were as individuals. And the amazing thing that I could not be more proud of are the citizens in this community. We really are an amazing group of citizens. And I hear this from so many different groups I've had an opportunity to speak to over the many months since this tornado, and they said, I cannot get over how you guys are as a city, how you are united as one. And unfortunately, it takes an incident like this sometimes to test us, but we really showed who we really were. Neighbor helping neighbor. People going door to door immediately after checking on their family to check on their friends and their other neighbors. And just to see if they were okay, what could they do? We have here a special guest, Sammy Walker's here. Sammy, stand up for a minute. Bruce Hargrave, stand for a moment. We owe him a special round of applause. And we talk about to be able to save that gentleman's life for a period of time. Unfortunately, he passed, but I believe that the gift that God gave him that evening was the gift of some time. Time to be able to say goodbye to his family, because he very easily died in that house this evening. And if it were not for these two courageous men, that gentleman would have passed, or he would have perished in that house. There were so many stories like that again and again and again. The story, where God's hand, I truly believe, was on the city of Rowlett that night. I have friends over at Tatiano's off of Lakeview Parkway. She said, we were sitting there, games were playing, and on ESPN, and she said, someone said, hey, there's a tornado. Well, she said they turned on the TV area, and someone got a report and said they heard the sirens and said, we better take cover. That cover could not have come, that message could not have come soon enough, because as soon as because what you think about cable TV, in a lot of cases, you don't hear a lot of that stuff that goes on the local news. So they immediately ran toward the cooler area, got everybody in the back of the cooler. And I remember talking to Ellen, she said, the last thing I remember going in there, she said, was remember turning around and looking out over my shoulder as we were hurrying people into the cooler area. I remember the front doors literally blowing open, almost ripping off the hinge, and the pictures that were on the wall got sucked out of the door. I said, what did you do then? She goes, I just threw myself on the floor because I knew I wasn't going to make it to the cooler. I threw myself on the floor. And she said, what really protected me was the stainless steel structure inside the kitchen. And that's what helped me, I believe, and saved me personally. And there's story after story like that. We had a story of a woman that I talked to that said, my son was home by himself. I was traveling for work. And she said, I'm in a hotel room watching this unfold. And how many times do you watch CNN and you see something going on and they try to give you some type of news and they'll say, there's this, if you're on this street or this road, you need to take cover now. We've never heard of these places. This is CNN. This is a worldwide and the news network. In many cases, they show the national program. And she said, I remember watching this in my hotel room and praying that my son was going to be okay. And she said, I tried to call, of course, you can't get a hold of anybody at that point. And she said, after the tornado went through, so I am completely panicked. Mom, I'm traveling out of state. I never anticipated anything like this would ever happen, and my son was home by himself. And sure enough, the little spot he hid in under the staircase, which is a little L-shaped staircase that went up, that little platform that he hid under became the highest point in a 2-story house after the tornado struck. And he walked away. There was story after story after story of survival, how families help protect themselves. And there was one gentleman said, I was in the powder room. He said, I remember after we all stepped out of the powder room, the walls of the powder room collapsed. That's pretty remarkable. And I truly believe it was God's hand on that city that night that helped protect. But what's more remarkable are all the people, and they're heroes. You all are heroes. The people that came out of their homes afterward to help neighbors. Many people didn't know one another before, hadn't met someone, had been living in neighborhoods for 10, 15, 20 years and had never met the people across the street. Well, they knew each other that night. And we banded together like a community that we've never been banded together before. That evening, the EOC swung into full swing at that point, and many organizations from all over the Metroplex and state converged upon Rowlett. And they converged upon many of the other cities that were impacted by the tornado. Churches opened their doors. It didn't make a difference what religion you were. We were all children of God, and they opened their doors to help assist in the community. Remember the story where Brian Hyatt was telling me that they were racing to get back, I believe it was from Mesquite, they were racing to get back to Rowlett to make sure the church was okay. And he said this is right after the storm had moved through. And everything, of course, was damaged. They see all the devastation, but their church, with very, very minor damage, was really spared at that point. The first thing you think of is, I need to tell people that we're here. He found a string of Christmas lights in the generator and threw them up outside to let people know that they became a beacon of hope that said, you can come here for help. There's story after story like that. And that story was really even further revealed after First Light, because that way you'd see the amount of devastation that was there. I remember standing in the EOC that night, and the first thing that happened, I get a phone call from Rich Arthur over at Home Depot and said, tell me what I need to do. I'll stay open all night if you have to. I said, Rich, at this point, it'd probably be a good idea because consider it done. And they stayed open all evening to help people that may need something. He said, anything you need, you send your staff by here, whatever, anything that you just come pick it up. A few minutes after that, our friends at Chick-fil-A show up and she said, I'm just here to bring some sandwiches. I know you guys have been working all night long. And by the way, we're going to stay open Sunday. It's the first time in the history of Chick-fil-A they stay open Sunday to help serve the community, to make sure people have a place they need to charge their cell phone, or just a warm place to be able to, or a cool place, depending on how you were that evening after all the rain, to be able just to stay dry in some shelter. Well, we found out after First Light that the tornado ripped a path through Rowlett a half-mile wide, about 3.5 miles long. And in total, we had 1,296 homes that were damaged. Many of those were catastrophic. They were complete losses. And we had 23 people injured. That's pretty remarkable considering the size of the storm. And shortly after that, it was amazing the outpouring of love in this community. And I think it's not just we are members of a community, it's we are members of a nation, we are members of the human race. And people turned out from all over. Encore, Atmos, emergency services personnel just converged upon Rowlett to help secure neighborhoods, cut off gas lines, turn off the power, to try to get it cleared so we could get into the neighborhoods to try to start providing support. And it seemed like to me the next few days, or really weeks for that matter, seemed almost like an eternity. It seemed like one of these days that just kept going on and on and on, and many of us worked 18, 24 hours a day trying to make sure that we did everything we could to help and provide support into the community. And as for the churches, they opened their doors. Again, they never asked what type of religious background you have, if you were a believer or not. They didn't care. It was an issue of we wanted to be here to help support this community. And the people did the same. The donations poured in like I've never seen donations pour in ever. They literally were like a chain gang standing there, handing after car after car after car would pull up. They said this was busier than a Chick-fil-A during lunchtime. One car after the next. And it just seemed like this never-ending stream of cars. And It's who we are as a community. These were people that did not even know the individuals that were impacted, but they went to the store and they bought bins and tubs and towels and sheets and pillowcases and pillows and just food, anything that you decided that they thought would be helpful, they bought and they delivered. And we had center after center after center of the churches that had donation centers. And it's really about, again, it really says a lot about the individuals that we are in this community. We're strong. We are united. And I think we have never been stronger than before, than we are today. You know, when it's not just folks like Home Depot or Chick-fil-A. We had the businesses open their doors and say, whatever you need. Our Chamber of Commerce helped out and said, whatever we needed, their businesses, they sent messages out for us. Spirit Outfitters, Keep Rowlett Beautiful, Baylor Scott and White Medical Center, was for a Lake Point. They came in and they set up shop. So anyone need a tetanus shot or other type of injuries, we're basically set up a field like triage type area. This is the community that we are. Operation Barbecue, you're going to have an opportunity to taste some of their barbecue flair. Showed up, had never met these folks before, knew them well enough after they left, served 30,000 meals that I want to say about a 2-week period. 30,000 people. Think about that. 24 hours a day, you could show up there and they'd feed you. Just like every other restaurant in Rowlett, he said, you show up there and they said, you look like you're working out there. Yes, I was. Well, they comped the meal. And it just, again, it's about the community that we are. And I've heard from so many other cities and said, what did you guys do? Because you are a model for what we would like to be. And I could write all the checks all day long, and we as a council can spend the money, but you cannot create that sense of community. Back in 2010, when Money Magazine came out, we were very fortunate, and we were one of the top 25 best places to live. One of the number one things they talked about was the sense of community. Because you can make all the statistical things, and it looks really great, but what gets you into that top list? And it's the things that make us unique. And that sense of community was really what set us apart. Now, you never know when you go into the Walmart store, as I've often said before, what you're going to get when you say, so what do you think of Rowlett? Someone's got their water turned off, they're not very happy that day, you just don't know what they're going to say. But all kidding aside, the number one thing they said was, it's the great sense of community that we have. And so, going out into the community that next day with Brian and myself and Cindy Burkett and many others was very, very sobering that day to see the amount of damage and devastation that was done. It's one thing you see a house fire and you go by and your heart goes out to that family and the devastation's there, but when you see street after street after street, mile after mile of devastation, it's very, very sobering. But the one thing that I remember more than anything through this whole entire event was the people. Were the people in this community, how we stood up together, how we were united, and we embraced each other to support any way that we can. I cannot be more proud of having the opportunity to serve during this time with such a great group of people like yourselves. If it weren't for the volunteers and the organizations that we have, we would not be as far along as we are. And I want to say thank you very, very much for all the hard work, and all of you deserve a very big round of applause. And finally, I want to say and take an opportunity to thank our amazing staff. Folks, we could not have done this without them. We can have all the plans, the best made plans in the world, but if it wasn't for a great staff and going above and beyond the call of duty, we would not be where we're at today. And a really special thanks to really the best city manager in the state of Texas, Brian Funderburk, for his leadership and hard work. It is the hard work and effort that the staff put forth and our emergency manager or our Office of Emergency Management that really have made this city what we are today. Finally, in closing, I really wanted to say just to all of you, that are not here, if you please send this message back, because many of you have friends that volunteered and people at church that couldn't be here this evening that also volunteered. Please thank them from the bottom of our hearts for all that they have done. You have made a difference in so many lives in this community. And we are a much better place because of that. Thank you. At this time, I would like to introduce State Representative Cindy Burkett. Cindy is not only a very good friend of mine, but I'll tell you what, Cindy is a great friend of the City of Rowlett. We could not have survived a lot of this if it were not for the help that she gave us at the state level. Not only was she here, she was here as a volunteer. I was with her as she was picking up debris, not as State Representative Cindy Burkett, as Citizen Cindy Burkett, because it was the right thing to do. When I needed help as a state representative, she put that hat on and joined us to help with this, especially with the governor's office, to try to help with FEMA and a lot of the paperwork and trying to help get the approvals done that were needed. So Cindy, we thank you very, very much for your help and support, and I certainly appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Todd, and I don't have any formal comments to say today, but I did get kind of a giggle out of Todd telling his daughter to get downstairs, because when the tornado hit over in Sunnyvale, and the tornado went all through my district, it hit Sunnyvale where I live, it went up through Garland, and it came through Rowlett. But we heard it was coming, all of a sudden the wind blew up, and I looked at my husband, I said, that thing is fixing to hit this neighborhood. And what does he do? Todd, my husband runs outside because he wanted to see it. I'm out there saying, get yourself back in here. So anyway, I just want to tell you that Rowlett has really become a very special community in my district to me. And Todd is right. You guys do not realize how lucky, fortunate you are to have the sense of community that you have here. I worked through all three of my cities during the tornadoes. It was amazing to watch the community rally in Rowlett, Garland, and in Sunnyvale, but not only that, the surrounding communities. I think we had, over 30 different communities that sent their emergency services to help. My church and 3 or 4 other churches in Mesquite, we had one day where we hit Sunnyvale, and we went and worked in the little park that was outside that was not really in any city. That got hit, and it had most of the trailers there that were destroyed, and we cleaned up there. And I tell you, I'm so in awe and thankful for the state of Texas, but the Texas spirit that you all showed when you came out to work for all these folks, but not just the city of Rowlett, but the surrounding communities. So thank you so much. We appreciate you. Todd is right. This is something that you could have written a check for and gotten the results that we did. And our prayers are going out to the folks who are still working through this. We've said from day one, I've heard Todd say it 100 times, this is not going to be a couple months fix. That we need to remember these folks as they're going through this long process of rebuilding their lives. But thank you so much for the time that you have invested in your community, in the relationships and the neighbors that you have, and I appreciate you more than you know.
Generated a well-defined circulation that now is getting close to the Rowlett area. Anyone that's in that Rowlett area needs to be seeking shelter. You can see what is coming. It has actually grown in size there.
When it was all over, sheer devastation.
And it's hard to wrap your mind around the magnitude of the devastation. You see cars and power lines blown into the street, homes blown to bits. The devastation is everywhere.
I'm still in disbelief right now. I still can't believe it's happened.
It's when the sun comes up that really hits for these folks. You see that devastation. You don't realize overnight how bad it really is.
The tornado knocked us down on December 26th. Our homes and memories were in mountains of rubble, but we got back up. We came together when our city needed us most. Thanks to the first responders who worked around the clock. Thanks to the churches who kept the lights on, providing food and shelter. Thanks to all the businesses who donated goods and services when needed the most. Thanks to our surrounding cities who gave us the resources we desperately needed. Thanks to the neighbors who worked together hand in hand and became lifelong friends. Thanks to the volunteers who helped complete strangers put their lives back together. We've come a long way, but there's still a tough road ahead. Together, we'll build it better and stronger. Together, we stand tall.
The first ones I'm looking for are the guys from the fire department, because I'm going to get ribbing for this, I'm sure. So there y'all are. Thanks, guys. So when I started, I'm not a great speaker, so y'all have to excuse me. So when we started this thing, it was through our association. Went through one of the guys, our association president, Josh Brock, had some addresses that needed some help. So that's how I started this thing. He asked if I could help one day. I went out and helped. And he had to be on shift the next day. He was like, hey, would you mind running the show for the next day? I was like, sure, I'll do it till you get back. Well, he ended up being busy, being the smart man. He took the office route and started scheduling for us. So it was neat to be able to contact him and go out. And then as he was on shift, or he was getting calls and I couldn't hear from him, I started driving the neighborhood and meeting people and finding out what they needed, and seeing the utter devastation from house to house and seeing people. But what amazed me was our citizens and how the smiles on their faces didn't really seem to wipe off. You could tell they were worried, but when they met you, they smiled. And they found out that what the important things, and it kind of helped change me as well, is that the important things in life weren't the things under our roof necessarily. It was the bodies that were under our roof, meaning our families, and our loved ones, and our neighbors. So that really helped motivate me to kind of keep going. Excuse me, a little nervous. So as I met the people, they were saying, yeah, we need this, we need that. And I started saying, man, this is pretty overwhelming for everybody involved. Going out and just getting address after address was time consuming. It'd be maybe until 11 o'clock before we would get started cleaning up in the morning. I was lucky to have a church down the street from Station 2 where I'm at, and went down and met some people there, and they started giving us addresses. Sean and Jackie down there were a great resource for us to go. So I could go there first thing in the morning, get a bunch of addresses, and go out to the houses. In doing this, we worked with a team of people, a great group of guys that I met through our association, which was through other firefighter associations throughout the DFW area. We had guys from Garland, Saxe, Rockwall, Mesquite, Allen, Plano, McKinney, Louisville, Dallas. We had some guys come from East Texas around Cedar Creek Lake area even if they gave a day. But what was awesome about it was that we didn't have any kind of a safety speech that we had to go through, tell them, hey, be careful of this, be careful of that. They were all firefighters. They didn't really seem to care, Not to mention the guys from all the stations here in Rowlett. If I needed something, we needed more manpower, needed trees cleared, needed roads cleared, or anything like that, it was a simple phone call away. So our community, those are great things. And I know I'm a firefighter, but to the departments and the captains that allow their crews to come out, because they would come out, help clean, help us move things, help us move people, get them moved into a new location or whatever. And it was the captains that really kind of allowed it in our leadership, our chiefs, assistant chiefs and all that were like, yeah, y'all go do this. And in the mix of all that, these guys were running calls, going heart attacks, strokes, fire alarms, a lot of gas leaks were reported and all that, so it was pretty neat. One thing that also really touched me was the citizens that came out to help and everything. I was fortunate enough to be able to meet, and make good friends at this point now with quite a few of them and everything. One of the guys that I was able to meet at one of the sites was there every day that I was. I called him up, he'd meet me at the station within 2 or 3 minutes. I don't know how fast he drove, he might have broke a couple speed limits or whatever, but he was there. And he's in the audience, and I'd love to recognize him. His name's Larry Clemens Jr. He's right back over here. Larry is an awesome worker. That guy has a work ethic that's unparalleled. As you can tell, he might lift a few weights every now and then. One side we were cutting down trees, and he was concerned that a tree limb might fall on me. My feet came up off the ground. He goes, I got you, Scott, don't worry about it. Larry, you can put me down now. So he's a great guy. There's Martin and Tracy Espinoza. They couldn't make it today. We had Jerry Leonard, who he spends half his year in Texas, half his year in Iowa doing farm stuff. I hope I'm in the shape he is when he's 67. He's 67 when I'm his age. The guy's huge. He's kind of, our guys will know who I'm talking about. Randall Lipsey, if anybody in here knows him, he's kind of a little bit older version of a Randall Lipsey. So he added a lot of character to us, but you know, the dedication of our citizens, our city, and everything to everything that we needed. Home Depot, the amount of stuff that they gave us, you know, we could go there and tell them, hey, we're doing this. Y'all take what you need. You need a wheelbarrow? Here's a wheelbarrow. You need some gloves? Take some gloves. Whatever you need. You know, it was pretty impressive. Not to mention the amount of food that showed up at each fire station was just absolutely outstanding. So we were able to take that in where people were bringing it to kind of help us out. You know, we were able to send that out to the community, you know, give some up to the Red Cross, to Operation Blessing, to Chama, another group that we worked with. But it was impressive, the outpouring that we had. One thing I like to say about the team that I got to work with was that we were able to get a lot done very fast and everything with the number of people that we had. One day we had no less than 17 people, but I say on average we had about 9 to 10 people for each house that we would go clear, and we would get a lot of compliments, and it was due to the work ethics of the guys that were on my team and everything, and it was absolutely impressive. But again, you know, I could ramble on forever and ever and everything, but I like to say thank you to everybody involved, the citizens for donating what y'all donated to us. The team of guys I got to work with, you know, from all the cities, I think they deserve a super round of applause from not only our citizens, but from our city council as well. You know, our department, again, you know, they gave so much and allowed so many things to happen for us and everything. And I appreciate all y'all coming out. And Station 1, thank y'all for showing up. And I'll have y'all ice cream here later on today.
What a wonderful day to be a tornado survivor in Rowlett, Texas, the best city in Texas. My aunt once told me a joke about an old lady an old man lived on a farm, and it was in Kansas in Tornado Alley, and she kept dragging him down into the storm cellar until he wouldn't go anymore. Finally, one day he said, I'm not going. And she said, yes, you are. The storm is here. You're going. He said, no, I'm not. And finally, she dragged him down to that storm cellar. The next morning, he threw the storm cellar door open. He looked, and the house was gone, and the chickens were everywhere, and the horses were everywhere. And you know what he said? Damn it, that's more like it. He was wrong. When I threw open my door, that sure isn't how I felt. I don't think any of y'all felt that way either, but a little tornado humor. I'm here because I want to thank so many different organizations. First off, our city council, our mayor, our LTRC, for putting everything together, getting the donations that have been put together and finding a way to get these monies out to people. I would like to stress to you guys, because of the weather, we're running out of insurance money. Please help these other people, unlike me, who have been gifted with the blessing you gave me. Get these monies out to these people. We're running out of money, guys. But thank you so much for the contribution you made to my home. I couldn't ask for more. The first thing I also wanted to note, you know, people talk about first responders, and it's already been brought up here. The true first responders to this thing were the people that walked out the door and saw the rubble, and then they ignored it and went neighbor to neighbor to neighbor to make sure all of our people were okay. And in my neighborhood, which was hit real hard, I don't even know of anybody in my direct neighborhood that was hurt. And it's amazing because they were hiding under stairs and hiding in bathrooms like we were, and it was amazing. And as I'm calling my best friend in the world to come out and help us in this storm, when I said my house is gone, of course I'm such a jokester, he said, oh, come on, no it's not. Yeah, it is. And 45 minutes later, there he is in his truck, parked a mile away because they've stopped everybody from getting through, walking in the rain, pouring down on him to get to us, so that he could finally get us to go back to him and get that ID to get his truck through there and load me up and load my dogs up, and he let me stay with him for the first week, as did one of my boys' girlfriends and one of my boys' uncles and so forth. David, thank you for your contribution every day since this tornado's been in our lives. And the next phone call I get the next morning, on Sunday in the morning, is from my insurance person on a Sunday morning. And she tells me, okay, here's how this is going to go down. I'm going to meet you tomorrow. We're going to go over everything. And in the meantime, you better look for a place to stay, because if you wait for us to do it, you're going to be in Alaska going to work. So I got blessed, and I have a home here in Rowlett that took my dogs and took my boys. And I'm sorry, my landlord's not here, but Henry, you saved us. You took us all in, and we're all together because of you. So I go off on this venture, and I go on Craigslist to collect all the things we're going to need, because I don't know where to get all the bedroom furniture and all the things we no longer have. And I go to C3, and I accidentally went there because I was looking for Granger and the Red Cross and C3, and I walk in, and they said, they're listening to my story. They said, oh, no, this is not the Red Cross. We're here to help you as far as other things are concerned. So you got beds. Well, do you have any sheets? No. Pillows? No. Toothpaste? No. What? And they're loading my car. And I had no idea who they were. And they're loading my car up with all this stuff, and then they finally directed me to Granger where I could go find the Red Cross. Of course, I couldn't drive my car. It was so full of stuff, I had to get home first. Then I get out to Granger and start meeting people out there, and of course there's the Red Cross and there's the Buddhist people, and they're all giving out money cards to all of us. The Islamic group giving out money cards to us. So many different organizations out there at home giving us $300 money cards to go out and put stuff back in our homes. And then we go to our property, and the Rockwall Exchange is everywhere out there trying to tear down our houses for free, trying to remove the stumps, the things that we need to clear out, help us clear out our homes. That group is represented right there. And Aaron, I don't know how to thank you and your organization enough. Oh my God, what a big donation. I can safely say that all your efforts wrote me a $10,000 check I wouldn't have to cash. As far as so many other places, the contributions from C3, from the Catholic Charities, the Cornerstone on Schrady, Sacred Heart, Good Samaritan, Sharing Life Ministries, Rowlett Baptist Church, First United in Rowlett, and United Church in Garland, all these places put their phone numbers out there for you to call, come get help. And you know what they did? They helped. They really did. Every one of them contributed. And the Tornado Donation Center that's been open for us to go through, I haven't bought groceries since December the 26th. And I'll tell you something, they are volunteering their time, and it's outstanding. All those ladies are doing. Cheryl, where are you? You and your girl stand up. Stand up. Stand next to me. Those ladies are out there all the time donating their time for nothing. Doing all that work in that donation center for us. Church in the City doing exactly the same thing. And they're telling us they're going to be there for a calendar year. I don't know how to thank you all enough. I want to make sure that I'm humbled by the goodness, the caring, and the kindness and the love of what's in front of me. Y'all, the people, because I've never in my life seen so many people come together not caring about any face, color, creed, religious organization, whether we're going to vote for Trump or not, any of those things whatsoever. Nobody cared, but everybody helped. And in my whole life, I've never felt more like part of a community than I do now. God bless you, God bless Texas, and thank you all for absolutely everything you all have done.
Hello. John did a wonderful job. Well said. I'm Sammy Walker. Todd alluded to the tornadoes that have been around us in the past. You remember the tornado that hit Forney about 3 years ago. But we were in our restaurant, and it came over our restaurant. Didn't come down, but it came over. My wife and I stacked a bunch of potatoes. We were scared to death because lights went off, and I knew for sure that was going to come down. Anyhow, the next morning, my wife and I helped all the first responders in Forney. A buddy of mine was county commissioner over there. Didn't ever think it happened, but I tell you what I did do. I built a tornado shelter in my garage that year. And I had one, and my wife and I were in it, and we were protected. And my neighbor here, Bruce, he built one about 5 days after the tornado hit. And yeah, I suggest everybody here consider it, or at least have some type of a safe space. But I can't believe what happened that night. As soon as the tornado was over, I opened my front door and I heard yells from across the street. Bruce and I came out of our house at just about the same time. We got over, and the house, of course I couldn't believe my eyes. And when I got to the house where Neil Lessop, he's the one that we was able to get out of the house, his sister Barbara and his son, the brother Bradley, were there. And we were able to get Neil out. Took about 15 or 20 minutes to dig him out of rubble. I've got old knees from all the weightlifting I did, and the rubble was, you can imagine. Bruce tried it, and he fell, and he hurt himself, but we were able to get him out, Neil out. We laid him on the ground. And I just talked to a few neighbors yesterday. One neighbor down the street, she's the one that used Bruce's belt as a tourniquet. Man was in bad shape. He had internal bleeding. He couldn't breathe. He had his compound fractures on his left arm. It was really bad. And then when the fire department had pulled up, I ran around and met them about 150 yards away. They couldn't get through because there was overturned cars and overturned trees. They couldn't get in. And I ran up to him, and the first fireman said, I told him, we have a severely injured man here. I'm living it again. And I said, we got to get to him. And he said, our first deal is turn off the gas. We've got to get the gas turned. We don't want any more explosions. So he did that, and within about 4 or 5 minutes they were there. They put him on a gurney. They were attending to him. He was in really bad shape. The fire department could not get to him. My Suburban was 20 yards away. I said, how about we put him in the back of that and take him to the hospital? Okay, do that. And call the hospital and said we was coming. Bruce and I were in the front seat. Neil was in a gurney and fit in the back. And I put Barbara and the son Bradley in the back seat. And we were on the way, and we had a heck of a time. It was just total gridlock on Dow Rock. A normal 2-minute drive took us 20 minutes to get there. We got out on the Dow Rock, and I had to go up on the right lane, go on the curb, and go the car on the curb to get him there, honking, flashers, screaming, saying we got a seriously injured man here. I said we got to finally turn right on to 66, total gridlock. I got on the grass median, started going down the grass median, and got toward the end. And there was a fireman there with the overturned power poles. We had to go over. There's power lines down, and that's when it happened. Barbara started screaming, "Live wires, live wires!" I said, "Don't worry, Barbara. This thing's grounded." We drove over those live wires to get him to the hospital, and then we finally did 20-minute drive to it. I couldn't believe how long it took because he was really suffering on breathing. And when I got there, the first thing that they did at the emergency room was like this: "We're all full." I said, "Well, you're not full for this man." So we got him in there, and he was immediately care flighted to Parkland Hospital. And after a few days, we thought he was out of the woods. We thought he was doing okay. And then when I saw one of the nephews over there 2 weeks later, and they said he passed away, just broke my heart. Absolutely broke my heart. I thought he maybe was a Jamaican family. And then we looked about going to the funeral, but they buried him in Jamaica. And the next morning, Lisa, my wife, and I walked the neighborhood. I guarantee that was rough duty. Bruce and I didn't have it nearly as bad as everybody else. We were the first people on our block on Willowbrook that could actually stay in our homes. And we did. And everybody else this way had to be displaced. And they're still displaced, many of them. And they're building. She's got it framed now. They're fixing to get back, and they're so excited about the progress. And the progress, just like Todd said, it's a process. It's a slow process, but we're getting there. And I got news for you. I'm so proud of my city. So very proud of my city. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Eric Ernst. I'm the Rowlett Community Emergency Response Team Director. I did prepare some remarks for this because when I tend to talk about the tornado, I tend to get choked up and emotional, so when I read it, sometimes it's a little bit easier. The problem is that I learned today is never speak after the bat mayor has already spoken. And I'm sitting there going through my remarks now. Well, that was covered, check that off, check that off. So December 26th was not a typical day in Rowlett. It was the day after Christmas. Most of us were still basking in the glow of the holiday or out shopping. Many of us were out of town visiting family or had family in town visiting us. School was out and children were playing with their games or their video games, more than likely. The last thing anybody was thinking about that day was the threat of an F4 tornado, changing so many lives in so short a period of time. The CERT teams of the Rowlett Citizens Corps Council, and just to be clear, there are 3 of them. Saxe CERT, East Tech CERT, and Rowlett CERT had trained and drilled for years for an event that none of us thought would ever happen. We had deployed to assist others in the aftermath of disasters, the Lancaster and Royce City and Forney tornadoes, but our city seemed to have a magical bubble around us. Every time a tornado would be heading our direction, they always seemed to turn and head north or south around the lake. Another non-typical part of the event was the direction of the storm. It came from due south and crossed the lake after cutting a swath through Sunnyvale and southeast Garland. Things were not typical that day about the weather. Tornadoes don't happen in December. Our emergency management coordinator and the CERT leadership team had been watching the radar and decided to report to the Emergency Operations Center as the storm was coming across Navarro County. As reports were coming in from Sunnyvale and Garland and the radar showed the beast approaching us, the sirens were activated and CERT teams were activated. What was typical that day, and what makes us Rowlett strong, was the spirit of the volunteers, city and government employees, citizens and responding partners. Within minutes, Rowlett CERT members were in the impacted neighborhoods, accounting for residents, shutting off utilities, and providing damage reports. East Tech CERT came quickly to Rowlett and provided rehab services throughout the night to all the first responders who came to our aid, some of the first responders from as far away as Payne Springs. Saxe CERT members were soon staged and working side by side with Rowlett CERT. A call out was made to our regional CERT partners on the night of the 26th to send volunteers to aid in damage assessment. At 7 a.m. on Sunday the 27th, over 280 CERT members from across North Texas and beyond, from Parker County to the City of Austin, where are you, Wayne? There you are. To the City of Austin, staged the community center and started a systematic assessment of every affected neighborhood in the city. Working side by side with the Minutemen and others, the preliminary assessment was completed in a day. Throughout the following week, Rowlett, Saxe, and East Tech CERT, along with our future leaders from Explore Post 1, continued sweeping through the neighborhoods, providing supplies and water and information to the impacted zones. Drone teams completed an overhead mapping of the damage, and citizens were located who had not had a chance to contact loved ones who lived out of state. And throughout this, our churches and citizens supported us. Chick-fil-A brought hot sandwiches out to responders in the early morning on Sunday. Rowlett First United Methodist let us set up our command post at the church and fed our volunteers breakfast and dinner every day. First United Methodist and First Baptist let us draw on their stores of donated materials to distribute in the neighborhoods. Baptist men worked in coordination with us to provide assistance to city residents. Walmart was asked if they could donate water. The next day they showed up with a truck. Home Depot donated essential supplies, and so many others worked to support the city and our CERT teams throughout the initial response. If an army runs on its belly, then that is one concern we did not have throughout the event. Throughout CERT's 6-day operational period, Rowlett, East Texas, and Saxe CERT teams would have a briefing and deploy for that day's task. We never worried about how they would be fed in the field. Families, mothers with their children, would make sandwiches and provide cold drinks to us out in the field. Operation Barbecue rolled in and fed our Army. Chick-fil-A continued to help keep our Army moving. It is hard to believe that it has only been 6 months, and other times it seems like it has been 6 years. I knew when I moved to Rowlett that we had found a special place. I'm not from Rowlett, but I got here as soon as I could. It is not special because of its location or scenery. It is special because of its people. There's not enough time, nor can the breadth of our gratitude be expressed at all the agencies and volunteers and churches and businesses who helped us through this hurdle in our history. Because of your assistance and heart, we will rebuild and be better in spite of the circumstances. The Rowlett volunteer spirit continues to grow from this. Our February Rowlett CERT class had 75 students in it. We usually average about 15. The upcoming August class already has over 60 students signed up. Our Saxon East Tech CERT teams also report record numbers in their training classes. Our Explorer Coast also continues to grow, and between all 8 programs of the Rowlett Citizens Corps Council, there are over 400 trained volunteers. We all wish that the events of December 26, 2015 had not occurred. We wish our magic bubble had worked again. But what this has proved is that if circumstances are unavoidable, then I want to live in Rowlett. The result of the tragic event of December 26th is not that we are Rowlett strong, but we are Rowlett strong.
When the pieces seem to shatter, together overflow.